Good morning, everybody. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us today. Good to have you here from a rather cloudy, little bit overcast Johannesburg in South Africa this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. It's so good to be here with you on October Mental Health Awareness Month and our series on talking about breaking the stigma, having a conversation about, and really just trying to sort of empower ourselves around mental health and to begin to have these conversations. This is a step in the right direction, right? So a few things from my side. By the way, if we've never met, hi, good to meet you. If we haven't met before, good to see you again. Just a few things. You'll see that the Q&A is open all the time, and I know that it does say ask a question, but if you have a comment, if you have a suggestion, if you have a question, or you have an answer to a question, please just pop it on. It says sort of like it says ask a question, or I think it says make an announcement or whatever it is, but that's sort of like our chat, right? So whenever you have a question, please pop it on. Like I say, a comment, or you want to answer somebody else's question, please do that. We'll get it, we'll publish those. And it's just such an important part of these sessions, right? Because we learn so much from you when you share from your experiences, how you see particular things and how you have encountered particular things. It really would be an honor. I really do encourage you getting involved in the conversation. Okay, now that we've got that aside, or we've moved on from that, let's have a look at today's topic. Today is Mental Health Awareness Month, Unlocking the Shadows. Let's talk about depression and anxiety. And why are we doing that? Well, let's first place it into context, because we are playing bingo, right? We've got our bingo board up and running, and I hope that you have your bingo board up and running. I hope that you have been trying all of these activities. You can tick off a few, hopefully, read an EQ article, have a healthy breakfast, phone a friend, make up your own, etc., etc. So I hope that you have ticked off a few over the last week. You still have 2 weeks to go, so you're doing well. 2 weeks to go before we end off our bingo board. So how are you doing? How's that going? Are you smashing it? If you are, sending you love. If you haven't started yet, don't forget, I mean, literally, this could take you a week if you really wanted it to. Get it signed off from an accountability buddy and then send it through to us, bingo@mindfulrevolution.io, once all of them have been signed, and you can win some amazing prizes. Good stuff. All right, let's check in with ourselves quickly. Let's check in with ourselves. Where are you at today? You can pop it in the Q&A if you want to, but if not, I just want you to check in with yourself right now. Are you empty? Are you struggling today? Are you meh? Are you feeling okay? Are you feeling good? Are you feeling great? And then you'll see on each of the little facets of the battery or levels of the battery, you'll see a little word of advice, right? So if you're empty today, pinpoint what has been draining you, try to create boundaries around those things, and try to find one thing that can fill you up today. If you're struggling a little, then what areas in life are you struggling with right now? Focus on one area today. If you're feeling a bit meh, how can you love on yourself today? Sorry, that was a bit weird, that language. How can you love on yourself today? Okay, I got it. Be extra kind to yourself. Feeling okay? How can you make your day a little bit better today? If you're feeling good, how can you maintain that current level? And finally, if you're feeling great, keep meeting and keep practicing your self-care. Where are you at today? How are you feeling? Check in with yourself. Why do we do this? Because self-awareness, the cornerstone of emotional intelligence. We can't speak about mental health without a level of self-awareness. We have to first know what's going on inside of us. We have to know what's going on here. And this is a fantastic way to do that, just to check in with yourself. All right, friends, why are we having this discussion? Why are we speaking about depression and anxiety? So I try to get Namibian statistics, but it was a little bit difficult to get them. So I went with some South African statistics, and I can't see them being vastly different from each other. But about 25.7% of South Africans are likely depressed. That's 1 in 4. Right, 1 in 4. That's a scary number, right? And suicide around the world is the second leading cause of death amongst people aged 10 to 34. There is a suicide every 11 minutes in the United States of America. Of those that have passed from suicide, 90% are depressed. It's the second leading cause of death amongst people aged 10 to 34. Those are young people in our world, the second leading cause of death. This is a pandemic. This is a pandemic, friends. This is something that we have to discuss, have to talk about, have to have conversations about, have to find ways to help each other, have to find ways to say to each other, man, we can't carry on like this. We can't carry on like this. If you think about it at the moment, there's a conversation around how life expectancy for people aged 10 to 34 is the same amount of life expectancy that we had in the 1920s because of mental health issues, 1920s. If you think about how you try to run a business, how you try to run an economy, how you try to run a family, how you try to run a social group, and you think of how many young people who are joining that or be a part of that can't and struggle through because you can't work at your best when you are depressed, we realize we have a major problem. We have a major problem that me and you have to discuss. We have to talk about it. We have to break the stigma. We have to arm ourselves with knowledge about depression. The same is true for anxiety. Before COVID, 7.3% of people struggled from or had an anxiety disorder. Today, preliminary studies say to us that that has probably shot up 25%. We're talking about 32% of people struggling from an anxiety disorder. That is a mad number, right? A mad number. I mean, think about it. If you had 30% of your workforce being having the flu, if you have 30% of your colleagues struggling with cancer, right here, right now, we would say, whoa. This is a problem. We need to find a way. We need to do something about this. And the reality is that you are. That's why you're here. And I want to thank you for that, because it is up to us. It is me and you. It is breaking the stigma. It is having these conversations. It's empowering ourselves and those around us. And it's finding ways to talk about these things. Because here's the deal. People on this call will suffer from depression and anxiety. Someone in your family will suffer from depression and anxiety. Someone at work will suffer from depression and anxiety. If it's 25% and 32%, I can guarantee you that that's going to happen. So we're going to have to face this. And I'm glad that you are doing exactly that. So on World Health Awareness Day, which was, I think, on the 10th, I think it was on the 10th, there's a football team in the championship. They're called Norwich, and they released this video. And I thought I wanted to start today's conversation by playing you this video, because I think it sums up exactly what we're doing and why we're having this conversation.
Oh, wow. How are you doing? You good? Oh, sorry. Thank you. How you doing? God, it's exciting, isn't it? Hey?
So, how's the week been?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I hope things are better outside of football.
Really powerful, right? Really hits home, and it's just such. Sorry, I get emotional every time I watch it, and I've watched it a few times now. For anyone that has lost someone due to or from suicide, you would know that it's just incredibly painful, right? Incredibly painful. And so together, let's find a way to help those around us and to help ourselves. Some of the misconceptions when we speak about depression and anxiety, we often think that mental health problems are a sign of weakness. They are not. We sometimes think that mental health problems are permanent and that you're going to be on medication for the rest of your life. That's not true. There are many times, many people that I can personally point you through that have come through it and that are off their medication and are thriving today from a mental health perspective. Only people without friends and families need therapists. That's not true. That's like saying there's a particular type of person that needs a doctor. There's a particular type of person that needs a physiotherapist or a personal trainer. Everybody does. Everybody can benefit from that, right? People with mental health conditions are not intellectual, cannot work or handle stress. This is beyond not true, and I think all of us know that, right? That it can affect the most intelligent, that can affect the most hardest working, that it can affect the most resilient human beings, People with mental health conditions are violent and dangerous. Well, did you watch that video? That's not true at all, right? Not true at all. Going to a therapist is a sign of weakness and is only for those who have mental health conditions. Again, not true. Therapy, a very important part of the proactive approach to our mental health. It's easy to tell when someone has a mental health condition. That's not true at all. We are going to speak about some signs and some symptoms today to try to identify it, but it's not true. And that video, I think, showed us exactly that, right? And then finally, mental health is only important for those who have a diagnosis. And again, that's not true at all. For those of us that have just joined us, hello, everybody. We're speaking mental health for Mental Health Awareness Month. We're speaking anxiety and we're speaking depression specifically today. And a reminder that I know it does look kind of weird on your screen because it says Q&A, ask a question. But if you have a comment, if you have a question, if you have an answer to a question, please pop it on the chat and we'll be able to interact throughout this morning. Okay, so let us speak about the first sort of condition we're looking at, and that's depressive disorder. So it's important just to separate things from diagnoses versus low mood, for example, or a moment of anxiety. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at the diagnoses today. So we're going to look at if you had to be diagnosed from a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a psychotherapist, they say, I've got depressive disorder. Well, what does that look like? So it can look like multiple things, but it usually has these sort of symptoms. We usually see a sadness and irritation and apathy and a detachment. We usually see, and not usually, we can see, that's the better word to use, weight gain and loss sort of dramatically. We can see a change in appearance with people very often. We can see a lack of self-care. So the moment people are not bathing, not grooming, not looking after themselves, where they used to. So in other words, a change in behavior from someone who used to look after themselves. Now all of a sudden they're not, could be a sign that things are not okay, right? What you'll notice is a withdrawal from social activities. You'll notice sleep issues. You'll notice memory issues and difficulty making decisions. And what do all of those things feel like? Well, people with depressive disorder tell us that they have a profound sense of sadness, loss, and irritability. They have this loss of, they have this sort of like described as no appetite for life. In other words, they lose their interests, their pleasures and activities that used to bring them joy. There's a feeling of hopelessness, a feeling of worthlessness, a feeling of pessimism. So in other words, we're just expecting only the bad things to occur. There is a lack of energy that includes struggling sometimes to get out of bed, a difficulty concentrating, increase in aches and pains and headaches in the body. There's usually an increase in digestive issues. That's a big one. And then often these can lead to thoughts of death or suicide. or even suicide attempts, or even death by suicide. So very often described as, people sort of use analogies like the dark dog, the dark day, feel like we're in a hole and we can't get out. This profound sense of loss. And it's really interesting because if we want to describe, or we want to speak about what depression is, we can go back all the way to almost like the father of modern day psychology, Sigmund Freud. And Sigmund Freud often used the comparison between grief and depression. So he often said that they look and feel quite similar, and there is the sense of loss that you have. However, he draws the distinction between the two, and it's quite beautiful. What I do want to just emphasize, what I've done here, I've taken the liberty, and I apologize, Dr. Sigmund Freud, but I've taken the liberty of replacing the word melancholic with the word depressive or depression. And the reason why I've done that is because we don't use that word melancholic anymore, but that's the word that he used to use to describe depression. So it's the same thing. And I've taken the liberty to change those words. So he speaks in this quote, we'll go through it together. He says, the depressive, in other words, the person that is depressed, displays something else besides that which is lacking in mourning, an extraordinary diminution, that's the word I'm looking for, of his self-regard. In other words, an impoverishment, geez, I can't read, of his ego on a grand scale. Right, so in other words, when someone else has died and we're mourning, we are not mourning the loss of ourselves, we're mourning the loss of those particular people. In depression, it still feels like we've lost ourselves, he says. In mourning, it is the world that has become poorer and empty around us. In depression, it is us, ourselves, the ego itself. The patient represents his ego to be as worthless, incapable of any achievement, and morally despicable. He reproaches himself, vilifies himself, and expects to be cast out and punished. Now, that's absolutely at the nth degree of depression, but what he's saying is very true. It feels like a loss of myself. I can't find myself. I don't know where I am. I don't know who this person is. I don't recognize this person. And so then I am incapable of achievement. I am incapable of being moral anymore. I have a sense of reproach for myself, even if it's a strong version or a light version of that. I start disliking this person that I am. I don't want to be this person. I don't want to be in this hole. And he says then at the extreme level, we start vilifying ourselves. And then we expect to be cast out of society. We expect to be punished for feeling this way. And this just adds to the cycle of depression. So really what Sigmund Freud is telling us is that there is this very strong idea of loss, of disconnection when we speak about depression. Now, the interesting thing about depression is that Sadok and a few studies and many psychologists and psychotherapists around the world, probably one of the most famous now, The Myth of Normal is a book that you just released. Sorry, I'm looking at it on my bookshelf, Gabor Mata. We've got this book that I absolutely love. It's Johann Hari's Lost Connection. We've got another book called Healing, Our Path from Mental Illness to Mental Health. Dr. Thomas Insel, who was the head of the National Institute of Mental Health for the United States of America. So everything I'm speaking about really coming out of these books. And interestingly, when they speak about depression in these books, they say genetic factors and neurochemical imbalances are a secondary symptom to depression. Okay, so let's just stop for a moment and analyze that, because that's very, very powerful. What they're saying is that a secondary symptom, in other words, a symptom of this loss, of this disconnection, is a neurochemical imbalance. So when we give chemicals, what it does is it treats the symptom. Now, me and you are well versed in this because that's what painkillers do, right? Painkillers, when you break your finger, you take a painkiller, it doesn't fix the finger. Okay, it doesn't fix the bone. What it does, it takes away the pain so that it can heal. So there are things that can be done to fix the finger. It's not taking away the pain. Taking away the pain is just allowing ourselves to handle it. It's exactly the same with depression. So when we treat depression, we usually treat it with an SSI, which is a serotonin-based treatment. And part of that is because that then helps the symptom, the neurochemical imbalance is the symptom of this disconnection and loss. And so we balance that out, and then we can deal with the precipitating factors. So we can deal with those factors then. So the major cause of depression are actually attributed to psychological or emotional factors. So when we're looking at treatment, the APA as well as SADOC and SADOC, they say very interesting things. They say clear identification of the precipitating factors is key to accurately understanding and managing depression. So in other words, you have to look outside. You have to look at what is happening in the patient's life or the individual's life to be able to say why we've ended up here. So we don't go to bed at night and wake up and go, oh, I've got a neurochemical imbalance and therefore I need to take serotonin and then I'm going to be okay. That's not the truth. That's not the truth, right? And any attempt to try to deal with depression like that does the depressive a major disservice. Does the depressive a major disservice? Oh, well, just take your medication, you'll be fine. Well, then you're treating the symptoms, bro, right? You're not treating the reason why we've ended up here. Now, I know that this can sound slightly controversial to a few psychiatrists and a few psychologists, but I think we can all begin to slowly agree that that is not the case. Like that this is true. And probably one of the leading journalists in this field is Johan Hari. And he speaks of what we call 7 losses, 7 triggers, 7 things that have happened that have changed our core beliefs and that trigger off depression. And when he speaks of these 7, he speaks in depth of those in this book, Lost Connection. And it starts with a disconnection from meaningful work. So people feel disconnected from meaningful work. People feel disconnected from each other. There is a massive disconnection, and me and you are spending less and less time together in social situations. We're spending less and less time together in clubs and in churches, sharing with each other as families. We're spending less and less time with that, and the less and less time we spend like that, the more and more we begin to see the rise of mental health conditions. We have a disconnection from our meaningful values, so we don't live our meaningful values, and this causes us great discontent. This causes us a sense of not understanding our purpose and our meaning, and not understanding why we're here and what we're doing here, our logos, right? As the Greeks used to call it, our logos, our meaning, our purpose. It comes from these meaningful values and following them. There is the fact that me and you have not treated our childhood traumas. And almost all psychotherapists will kind of agree that this one is a big one. Okay, so me and you have been shaped by our childhoods. So we have a sense of core beliefs that then shape our adult lives, and not connecting with those core beliefs and trying to rewrite those core beliefs. Very often they are a cause and a precipitating factor in me struggling from a mental health condition when I get earlier. We have a real sense of disconnect from status and respect and autonomy. If you think about the lives we live, if you think about the societies we live in, every individual, big or small, wants to be respected, wants a sense of status, wants a sense of autonomy, to be understood, to be respected, to be cared for. And part of the reason why we see mental health conditions, particularly suicide, on the rise amongst young men is this disconnection from a sense of status in society, right? We see a disconnection from the mental world, from the natural world. And if you don't mind, I'm going to stop there for a moment, and I'm going to play you another video today about that. And it's such a powerful video, and it speaks to this exact thing, it speaks to this exact idea. And sorry, let me just bring it up over there. And it's relatively long, so bear with us, but this is the disconnection from the natural world that we are speaking about.
Do you remember where you come from? You are a product of nature. For thousands and thousands of years, this has been our natural habitat. The light of the day, the cool of the night. The flow of the seasons and the sounds and sensations of the sun, the rain, and the wind. A deep bond with nature that is embedded in our genes, affecting our bodies and our minds. But somehow, along the way, we forgot about all of this. Slowly but surely, we left nature behind, and we went inside. Replaced nature with ceilings and walls, central heating and artificial light. We became the indoor generation. And we loved it. Today we spend 90% of our lives indoors, and we're passing this new habit on to our children. The coming generation will be indoors from the moment they wake up and throughout most of the day. And they will spend most of their time in closed-off environments. We try our best to replicate nature everywhere, because it somehow makes us feel better. But it's not the same. Living without daylight and fresh air affects us. It affects our health and our well-being. We pay a price for leaving nature behind. To save the indoor generation, we must find ways to let nature back into our lives. Our lungs, bodies, and minds are longing for it. We have to give the coming generation a feeling for the outside, of natural light and fresh air. We must nurture and value the connection to Mother Nature that we are all born with. Just because we have gone inside doesn't mean that we have to leave her behind. Nature is still here for us. It's just waiting for an invitation.
Right. And again, I think that is the perfect example of what we're speaking about today. And one of the precipitating factors to why me and you are struggling as much as we are, part of it is because of this, our disconnection with the natural world. And finally, a lot of us are struggling with a disconnection with hopefulness and a secure future, because we look at the world and we go, how are we going to survive this? How are me and you, how are children going to survive this? I've lost the sense of hope. We only have to look at what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on in Ukraine, for us to know that this is going to deeply affect our mental wellness. This is going to deeply affect the way we see the world. We don't know what tomorrow will bring, and that scares us. We don't know what tomorrow looks like, and that scares us. And so we lose that sense of hopefulness for the future. The moment we lose a sense of hopefulness for the future, we begin to lose ourselves. And when we lose ourselves, like we've said, we begin to get depressed. So this gives you an idea of how we've ended up here and what we need to do as individuals and as a society to begin to find our way out of this, to begin to help each other become less depressed and to become happier, and to begin to start dealing with this pandemic. Okay, let's look at the second one. Why are we here? We are here to look at the second one. We're doing depression and anxiety. Okay, generalized anxiety disorder. So what's important to remember about this disorder, once again, we're looking for a diagnosis of this disorder, is that it's more than just worry. Okay, we're looking at least 6 months of struggling with or clearly excessive amounts of worry, excessive amounts of fear for the future or right now. So I'm fearful right now of something that's going to happen. And this worry, it really, really challenges my ability to control myself, my physical body, and my thoughts. So this worry we speak about, this clear 6 months or more of general worry, can show itself up in very particular ways. For example, some of the symptoms that you're looking for is an edginess and a restlessness far more than you've ever had. You're looking for a fatigue that is just kind of different from the fatigue you've ever felt, like a real sense of lethargy, right? You're looking at an impaired sense of concentration or feeling as though the mind is just going blank very often. There is an irritability, and an irritability that you've observed in yourself and others have observed in you. An increase in muscle aches, probably difficulty sleeping, and having unsatisfactory amount of sleep. So again, no matter how long you sleep for, you feel like you just can't break that cycle. And then there is this constant nervousness, right? And one of the ways that you can also begin to notice that you might be struggling with a generalized anxiety disorder is environments, places, people that you used to be okay with. You're now getting more and more heightened by them. You're getting more and more nervous in them. So the simple activity, for example, that you used to be able to accomplish of going to the store now becomes a little more worrisome. The simple activity of going into a crowd, and I say simple activity, it might have been a simple activity for you, and now you can see that it's starting to show up in another way. You might want to look at generalized anxiety disorder, and you might want to go and speak to someone about that. What you'll also do, is part of the reason why we're having this conversation, is watch out for that amongst your kids, your family, your friends, your husband, your wife, your colleagues, right? So a colleague who used to be able to go into a meeting quite easily, now you can see really struggles with that, right? Has general anxiety around particular meetings or talking to people or speaking on the phone. You can begin to go, okay, cool. There might be a pattern here of 6 months or a little less. And wow, maybe we need to start having a conversation, right? It's an extremely difficult disorder to live with. And it's a disorder that's really difficult to explain to other people because it's clouded by the sense of absolute fear, absolute worry. Now, it can be generalized in the sense that it's not one particular event that does that to you. Not one. So in other words, I'm scared of dogs. That's a rational fear, right? That's a rational worry. That's like, go walk out and I hope I don't see a dog. You're okay. That's cool. You know, learn to deal with that if you must, because you're gonna have some happy dogs that you're gonna be around that's not gonna bite you. So you can learn to like re-script those core beliefs. But when we're talking about a generalized disorder, we can't find one thing that triggers us or pushes us into that space. So this is important when we look at generalized anxiety disorder. But what I want to do is I want to take a step back today, if you don't mind, and speak about anxiety across the board. And this is very important because it comes down to, fundamentally, it comes down to the second law of thermodynamics. Okay, what does the second law of thermodynamics have to do with this? Well, let's go through the second law of thermodynamics for a moment. It is impossible for any system to operate in a way that entropy doesn't exist. That's the second law of thermodynamics. What is entropy? Entropy describes how things naturally move from order to disorder. In other words, so I'll get to the third point in a moment, but okay, so pretty simply, what this is saying is that over time, this pen, by its very nature or the very nature of thermodynamics, will disintegrate. This pencil goes from a sense of order to a sense of disorder. It doesn't go the other way around. So there is nothing in our world that goes the other way around. There is nothing that goes from a sense of disorder naturally to order. It's always the other way around. Now, me and you know this very well, and this is exactly why we are anxious and worried about the future, etc., because we know for a fact that the law of thermodynamics, the second law, is true. Let's use an example. I want you to take a bicycle and I want you to put the bicycle outside for 6 weeks. And I want you to tell me, do you think the bicycle is going to look better or be in a better state or in a worse off state after leaving it outside in the sun for 6 weeks? You know for a fact that it's going to be in a worse off state. Okay, you know that. So that's entropy. That's the law. It's impossible for any system to operate without that entropy that exists. And entropy is true for everything around us. There's not a single thing that doesn't fall under this law. So every human we know is constantly one day closer to their death. That's harsh, but it's true. Our bodies are deteriorating every single day. There's some dude, I've checked him, I can't remember his name, but he's got like this blueprint for like living forever. He's some like VC millionaire or billionaire or whatever, and he's like really trying to reverse aging, and he's like doing everything he can, and he's fighting this thing, and let's see what happens in 200 years with this guy, right? But the truth is he's constantly having to fight entropy, because entropy is the real thing. His body is deteriorating year on year, and everything around you does exactly that. So as I speak about that, and as I say that to you, isn't it alarming that me and you actually can live a life of happiness, of relaxation, and of peace? Because we know everything around us, including ourselves, is deteriorating. We know everything around us is going to, or is in the constant level of deterioration, is in a constant level of change, and that change for the worse, not for the better. Not for the better. It is a miracle that me and you are not absolutely anxious and absolutely depressed all day, every day. It's a miracle. It's a literal miracle. And that's why Pinker says to us in this quote, says, entropy reveals that human flourishing represents an incredible sort of sliver of ordinary arrangement of matter. I'm reading it now, admit an astronomical number of more chaotic possibilities. So what they're actually saying, and that's like a mouthful, as you saw, I was trying to get through it. What they're saying is, it's amazing that me and you flourish in such chaotic possibilities. It's amazing that me and you flourish. It's amazing that me and you are not constantly anxious, constantly depressed. Because why? Because the future is always changing, uncertain, and deteriorating. So anxiety technically refers to the emotional state of physical tension and apprehension, worry about the uncertainty and the uncontrollability of our futures, which, by the way, according to the second law of thermodynamics, is inevitable. It's inevitable. So that is incredible, because then absolutely every one of us should be, without a shadow of a doubt, we should have an anxiety disorder. We should have a generalized anxiety disorder, surely. Because if anxiety refers to the negative natural state of physical tension and apprehension about uncertainty and uncontrolled futures, we all have those. We all have uncertainty and we all have uncontrolled futures. So if that's the case, how come some people struggle more than others from anxiety? Well, let's look at those people. So the emotional response to distinctive forms, associated states based on temporal focuses such as fear, in other words, present state, trauma, past state, all of us have these things. It's the level of which we have them and the level of which we believe that we can cope with them. And that's the key here, the level that me and you believe that we can cope with them. So when we speak of anxiety, we speak of it being a gift to us, because it has helped us to understand, it has helped us to stay safe. It has provided us with a valuable advantage over other animals, psychologically and physiologically, as we can anticipate threats. We know threats are coming. There is an inevitability about them. And as or before they manifest, we can create safety and security for ourselves as humans. We can communicate about that with other humans. We can tell them about the time we encountered the dangerous lion, and then we can tell them how we defeated the lion, and thus we as groups of people can begin to form ourselves around and in spaces that protect us from lions. This is why it's a silver lining to some extent, right? I don't know if you've ever noticed like a little chihuahua. A little chihuahua just goes to danger. A little chihuahua doesn't have this anxiety, right? Like a pit bull comes and says, how's it, to the chihuahua at the dog park. Man, the chihuahua is just like, let's go, buddy. I'm ready to fight. I mean, the pit bull literally has to take a small little nip, and the dog has unfortunately passed away. But the dog doesn't see that, right? The dog's like, nah, let's go. I'm ready to fight. where the human has a sense of, hold on, well, this thing is more dangerous, it's bigger, it's a threat to me. Okay, it's a threat to me. So the interesting thing about then finding a way to survive this is that we can't avoid triggers. We can't avoid uncertainty. We can't avoid pain. We can't avoid any of those things, but rather our job is to learn to have and to learn to calibrate our psychology and our behavior, our biology, to pursue what is valuable instead of chasing, running towards, or fighting those things that scare us. Okay, let me explain that again. Is that we are constantly looking for calibration as people. We're constantly looking for calibration. We're usually looking for calibration in two places. Ourselves, in other words, our thoughts calibrate us. This is dangerous. This is not dangerous. Is this dangerous? Is this dangerous? Can someone tell me this is dangerous? Can someone tell me I'm under threat? Yes, I am. I remember past experiences of it. I'm calibrating myself. Yes, this is a threat. The other calibration is other people. We're looking around. Hey, can you tell me if this is a threat? Can you tell me if I'm overreacting? Can you tell me, right? Can you tell me if I should be worried about this thing? Can you not? So I'm trying to calibrate with other people. Now, the problem with those two calibrations is that they're often false and unreliable. They often lie to you. Your brain lies to you because it wants you to be safe, so it's going to tell you everything is dangerous. Your friends, your family members, those that you have began to calibrate around usually have the same traumas, the same core beliefs as you, and so you just have this loop of calibration, right? This loop of false information coming back at you consistently. So what you have to do is you have to stop calibrating yourself with your thoughts, stop believing your thoughts to be real and reliable, to be truthful and reliable. There are times that your thoughts are truthful and reliable, but there are some times that they are not. And to be perfectly honest, most of the time they are not. So if we can't trust our own thoughts, and Grant, give me an example of what you mean. Sure. Broccoli. Wait, even worse. What are those little cabbage things? Brussels sprouts. Oh man, you chuck a Brussels sprout in your mouth, you start chewing that thing, and what does your thought say? Gross, ew, disgusting, not lekker, ugh, can't, ugh. Take chocolate, chuck that in your mouth. What does your brain say? Ooh, delicious, lekker, yummy, love that. Ooh, that's good, creamy, really nice. Okay, your thoughts are lying to you because one of them is good for you, the other one isn't. The diametrically opposite thing that the brain is telling us. The brain is telling us chocolate's good, Brussels sprouts are bad. That's not true. That's not true at all, right? Your friend comes late again and you're sitting and you have thoughts. My friend is disrespectful. My friend is rude. I can't believe she did this again. This is so disgusting. These thoughts just ruminate in the mind over and over again. Little do we know that my friend has been in a car accident. Your thoughts are not true. She might not have been disrespectful that day. She might have been in a car accident that day, but we believe the thoughts to be true. We calibrate on our thoughts. So we go, yes, she's always late. Yes, she is an idiot. Yes, and we just calibrate on that. Not a good idea. The second calibration, other people, they can let you down too. The third calibration, instead, what we should be calibrating ourselves to is pursue things that are valuable and calibrate yourself according to things that are valuable. Well, what do we know of valuable things? Well, we know that we can attest the value of those things within the goal, the vision, the North Star. In other words, your actions and their value assessed by if they get you closer or further away from your goal. What is the goal? Well, you tell me. That's up to you. So, for example, you said to me, Grant, I would like to go from Swartkopmund to, well, actually, Grant, you come to me, say, hey, Grant, should I fly or should I drive? That's the question you asked me. So I can't attest the value. I can't assess the value of flying or driving if I don't know where you're going. So are you going to Germany or are you going to Swartkopmund? Are you going to a suburb in Windhoek or are you going down to the Fish River Canyon? Okay, like I can only assess the value of your mode of transport if I know where you're going. It's the same with your life. So one of the ways in which we calibrate is, okay, cool, broccoli versus chocolate. Again, Brussels sprout versus chocolate. Okay, what's your goal? My goal is to be healthy. Okay, calibrate on what is healthy then and eat this. Don't trust yourself, don't trust others. Eat the Brussels sprouts because you want to be healthy. So how do I know that it's valuable eating the Brussels sprouts? Because I know where I want to go. All right, I know where I want to go. And this is very, very true for any set of calibration. Why are we speaking about this when we speak about anxiety? Because anxiety is pretty much, I don't believe that I can handle the threat. I don't think I have the skill set. I don't think I have the options to be able to get away from. I don't believe that I can handle the threat. Now, the threat might be a to-do list. The threat might be parking. The threat might be going to a new restaurant. The threat might be speaking to new people. The threat might be going into a crowd. And what happens is the brain has said to me that I can't handle those things. So I can't handle, I don't have the skill sets. I don't have the options. I'm not equipped enough to handle that. So to rewrite the brain, we have to go and we have to do those things. And we have to do them in safe environments first, and then eventually we have to do them we sort of exposure. It's called exposure therapy. We expose ourselves to things over and over again until we are safe there. We are safe in those environments, right? We're safe in those places. So why again, and what this has to do with the pursuit of what is valuable. So in other words, we behave in a particular way where we say, okay, brain, you're lying to us. Friend, you're probably lying to us. But I know that I want to be able to go to dinner with my family without getting anxious. So what I do is I slowly meet with one member of the family, the next member of the family, cognitive dissonance kicks in and it gets even worse and gets even worse. And eventually a therapist helps us to work through that because that's the valuable behavior. That's the valuable behavior. Okay, and that then I remind myself and I help myself to remind myself that I can handle anything. I can handle any situation. I can handle any to-do list. I can handle any family situation. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be safe. And then that constant behavior to rewrite those core beliefs. Okay, so friends, at the very sort of end of what we're speaking about today is that when we speak about depression and anxiety, we speak about those three things, right? We speak about our biology, in other words, how our genes are expressed. We speak about our environment and we speak about our experiences. And those three things are going to or begin to define our mental wellness. So we've spoken about where anxiety comes from, depression comes from, but this is a really holistic look at all of mental health then. Let's just end off the last 5 minutes about what we can do about this. So we want to know what we can do about all of these things. And you can really look at all your dimensions of wellness and how you can really begin to help yourself through all of these things proactively. So emotional, gratitude and forgiveness, journaling, self-reflection and therapy work. Finding meaning and purpose at work, your professional development, take breaks from your occupation. When we think self-development, we think reading, learning, new skills, research. We think green on the screen right now. Declutter, decorate, clean, let nature in again. Bring plants into your house, go for a walk every day, get out into nature. At the bottom, we think about our financial security. We think of budgeting and saving and be conscious of what you're spending every day. Get your acquisition and your spending, as well as your habits, in alignment with each other that they don't cause you discomfort. When we speak of social, we speak of connecting, deepening our relationships with people around us, making new relationships and forming boundaries where we need them. We speak of sleep, exercise, and diet. We speak of connecting to our spiritualism through meditation, through yoga, through nature, whatever it is. And all of these things are going to holistically help us to begin to live this best version of ourselves, to begin to work and find a way that me and you can lead proactive, mentally well lives. All right, friends, thank you so much. We are ending a little bit earlier today, probably a little, about 10 minutes early, but I've spoken a lot. And if there are any questions, I will stay on right now. If not, thank you so much for joining us. It's, as always, been an honor and a privilege. I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that you have you've gotten something from it. Just a reminder again, some of the books that I've been using: Lost Connection, Johan Hari. The next one is Healing: Our Path from Mental Illness to Mental Health, Thomas Insel. This is quite a difficult book to get, so you might have to get this on sort of Kindle or one of those. A little bit difficult, but this one's super easy to get and probably worth a read if you're interested in this. Lost Connection: Why You're Depressed and How to Find Hope. Okay, good stuff. I hope there was a benefit to you. Look after yourself. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.